All right, so once again, we're back in Blender, right? So this time around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to show you, make a basic video for blocking in the simple forms of the troll. We're not going to go too far in it, right? We're just going to focus on kind of getting the troll set up with smooth preview, with symmetry, and just kind of extruding on the major block-in forms, right? I don't think we're going to get to the shoulder loop quite yet. We'll kind of do another video later this week for that stuff, right? So in this case, I've just launched Blender again, and what you can do is you can always just click, and it automatically starts you with the default cube. And that's what we wanted anyways, right? We wanted that default cube because really this is actually what we call box model, right? And you've seen that we've actually built a lot of things from boxes or primitive shapes, right? Our spaceship, we kind of started from cylinder forms and extrude border edges out. Of course, you can extrude border edges in Blender to use that same technique, so that same technique applies in Blender as well. A lot of you guys that were here the whole year or even 2 years, we know we use a lot of extrude faces to block in our organics, like characters, creatures. So a box is great. That's what we want to start with. One of the great things is these videos are going to be linked. I'm going to have them on my YouTube account. I'm going to provide links to you guys in our Microsoft Teams. So you can go back and watch these videos as much as you want. That's what's going to be one of the great things about doing this distance learning, these videos, is that, well, you can watch it as many times as you need it, right? You've got my lecture there all the time whenever you need it. So that's what's going to be one of the great things about it. So of course it defaults in a cube for us. Like I said, I'm going to switch to modeling because it's kind of more focused on giving you your modeling tools. And one of the things we want to do is really we want to start to set this up to be half a model mirrored over, right? So in this case, remember you can, when you're modeling, if you hold down right mouse button, or just click right mouse button, you'll actually get options. Now you'll see these are specific to the vertices, right? So I'll probably switch to edge mode, which is 2, right? And then if you hold down right mouse button, or just click right mouse button, even if you hold it down, just right click, it brings up your edge context menu, right? And what you can do is you can do loop, cut, slide. Now in this case, remember, the default, if you don't click and drag it anywhere, it'll just kind of, oops, my bad. So I'll just right click, loop, cut, slide. You notice by default, it goes to the center. So if you just left click and not hold, it puts your edge loop right on the center for you automatically, right? And that's great because we want to actually have an edge loop down the center, so it'll be easy to delete half of this and mirror it over. So there's our edge loop, right? And I just went to edge mode. Like I said, hit 2 to go to edge mode, so you're in edge mode, and that will, when you right click, give you loop, cut, and slide, right? And that's your multi-cut tool basically, right? Or Blender's version of it. It's going to allow you to add edge loops in, right? We want to switch to face mode now, so I'm going to hit 3 because 3 takes us to faces. Remember they're right up here though too, right? There are little buttons in the interface. It's great to use quick keys, right? You know, 1, 2, and 3 are great to kind of set those up for you. Remember right here, edit mode's kind of already on, and that's kind of 1 takes you to vertex, but also to edit mode. And then when in edit mode, you have like 2 and 3 to kind of take you to the different selection types. So in this case, we're in face mode, so we see how we can just left click on a face, right? And I'll select it. Now, remember, you can actually, if you want, hold down left mouse button on kind of the very top select box here, and you can switch to circle select. And what's cool about that is if you just left click drag, you'll notice, and you hold down shift, just like in Maya, right? So shift will allow you to add to selections, controls will allow you to subtract. So remember, if you've got the edit preferences, right, key map industry compatible on, it's actually going to use a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of the same quick keys and workflow that Maya does, right? Remember, you can always go back to watch that first video, Intro to Blender, to kind of see some of those things again. But that's what's going to be cool about this is Blender, particularly with the 2.8 series and above, really kind of adopted kind of making it more like really Modo and Maya in many ways, and taking the best of their stuff and applying it to what's really turning into a pretty cool free software. So you do have circle select, right? And that's great. But you'll notice that there is, as we saw kind of before, if you go to the select menu, you'll see that there is select more or less, right? And that's actually your up and down arrow. So that's your grow and shrink, right? Remember how Maya has a grow and shrink selection? Blender does as well. It's just that it's your up and your down arrow. But it is in the select menu, select more or less. And of course what we can do is we can hit delete. Now, when you hit delete, it will prompt you to say, hey, do you want to delete face? It'll like bring up the options for what you can delete. So we'll hit faces to delete that. And that takes those out, right? So that deletes those. And now what we do is we have half of this, right? Because one of the things that we've seen, and we saw it in Maya, is that we had our ability to do symmetry modeling. Now, Blender's symmetry setup is not bad, but this is, and its smooth preview is not bad. This is one of the areas where it's good enough that we're able to get running, but Maya is definitely better at this stuff, right? This is kind of one of the areas that I definitely prefer Maya. Its symmetry and smooth preview functionality, and Moto's symmetry and smooth preview functionality are just kind of light years ahead of kind of everybody else's, to be honest. So what we need to do is we kind of need to mirror this over to the other side, right? And this is where we can actually go to kind of our modifier screen, right? It's kind of the little the little wrench down here, right? And we can go to add modifier, right? It's kind of this little menu up here, add modifier. And you'll see that there's lots of little modifiers you can apply to it, right? We're not going to use these that much, but you can. This is kind of how you can get your history modeling in Blender. And actually, much like Moto and even 3D Studio Max, this is one of the things I prefer about those software over Maya, is that you opt into a modifier instead of having it always there as history. You don't usually need history for a lot of your modeling functionality. And a lot of software doesn't do it exactly like that with Maya, so you can see there is a mirror option, right? So we can click on mirror, and you'll notice it kind of mirrors over to the other side, right? And you see how you can pick the axis you want to mirror it on, right? You can have it mirror on multiple axes. Usually we kind of want to turn on this little guy right up here. You see that kind of looks like a triangle with point vertices. And what that does, that kind of lets you kind of see everything kind of fully functioning, where you see all your polygons normally. You see that there is a merge limit, so you can kind of make sure that it maybe turn that up a little bit, just so it stays a little bit kind of more on the center. Because you see now, if I grab a face and I hit W for move, you see there's a certain point where it starts to pull apart, right? And that's what's kind of your merge limit's going to control. And you'll see merge is already on, and you'll see how it kind of, you might have to turn it up pretty high, right? So we'll kind of get it up to maybe a meter. And you see how it works a little better at kind of keeping that center merged. Too high though, and it can start to do some weird stuff. So keep in mind that you do want to be a little bit more careful with Blender in regards to that kind of stuff over, say, Maya. One of the things you can also do is you'll see that there is kind of with, let me see if I can remember where it's at. Yeah, there we go. So when, like, say your move tool's on and you go back up to kind of the tool properties up here, you'll see there's something in options here where you can actually have it do symmetry mirror, right? We can pick X and topology mirror, and you see that that can also give you some kind of mirror functionality as well to kind of keep stuff together a little bit better. So you have some options for how this stuff's going to work if you want it to be there. But even your move tools kind of have some of their own kind of mirror functionality. But generally, we kind of needed to apply kind of in the modifiers, add a modifier mirror to truly mirror over to the other side, right? That kind of gives us that mirrored form a little bit. Remember W for move, and you can of course use the handles, but middle mouse button actually just does a free move, right? It just moves based on the view of the camera itself. Something we definitely saw when we're using in Maya. Maya has its own versions of that, right? So you're going to have that stuff normally like you would. One of the other things I wanted to briefly show you guys today as well is the fact that we can add smooth preview or subdivisional surfaces to this, right? And that's going to be another modifier. So probably really particularly for these initial first days, we're going to be switching from kind of the blue kind of wrench down here to the kind of screwdriver wrench to kind of get some different options. Particularly when you want to add an actual modifier like mirror, like smooth subdivisional surfaces. You're going to have to go to that little blue kind of work thing. And that's a little bit of getting used to. Like I said, this is kind of an area where Blender does it well enough, but it's just not as good as Maya's is for that stuff. So we go to Add Modifier, right? Again, right up here. And you'll see that there is subdivisional surface, right? Right here, subdivisional surface. So we're going to click on that. And you'll notice that it actually puts a subdivisional surface on here. But you'll notice it kind of gives us kind of the control cage outside of it, right? And that's where we want to kind of go down here, and you'll see there's these modifiers now, right? So you see that there's the mirror modifier. And then below that, there's now another modifier for your subdivisional surface, right? And so what we can do is you'll see that there is kind of another little kind of triangle one. You click on that and it'll kind of show your kind of normal stuff, right? And you see that the symmetry can kind of pull apart, so you have to be a little more careful with that. You'll also notice that we're seeing this kind of shading on this subdivisional surface, so that's weird. But this is one of the things about modifiers. You are going to have to kind of apply a mirror modifier and a subdivisional surface modifier from the blue wrench here, right? And then maybe usually I kind of turn on these little kind of blue triangles just so kind of it makes everything properly kind of viewing through multiple layers. Now, one of the things that's a little weird, we'll go to 3, is we have to kind of smooth shade this ourselves. Once you do it, you're good. So I'll just hit 3 for face mode, and I'll just kind of do a left click drag box select. Now, you'll notice it doesn't necessarily grab everything on the back, right? That is kind of one of those things where you know, you just kind of have to be a little used to that. I kind of feel like it was yeah, no, it's just left click drag, and then we can just shift click on that back one. I feel like there's some kind of way to kind of have it do all of them. I just can't remember it off the top of my head right now. And what we can do is there should be something in right here. Let me remember where it's at exactly. Remember all these things. Actually, it's just a right click. Yeah. So once again, if you just right click in face mode, right, it brings up your face context menu. And what you'll see, there's an area called smooth shade or shade smooth. And what that does is see how it actually kind of applies smooth shading to that subdivisional surface. So you just select all your faces, right? So just kind of select all the faces. By the way, if you grab a face and you kind of do the right bracket quick key, right? It's kind of the one right above enter, kind of right below backspace. It's kind of those. It's kind of in between the backslash and the P. There's those little brackets. The right bracket actually will do select connected. So there is actually a select connected inside of Blender. It's just called select linked all, right? So go to the select menu. There's select linked, and you see how there's like the little kind of bracket key. So that can be a great way to kind of select all your faces if you want to. And then, like we said, you know, if you right click or hit right mouse button, it brings up your face menu options. Extrude's there. We'll be using extrude soon. But you can shade smooth. And now you see we kind of have more of a standard kind of subdivisional surface with symmetry. Like I said, this kind of doesn't work quite as well as, and it's not quite as easy to set up as it is in Maya, but it's usable, right? It works well enough. So what we want to do is we want to add some edge loops, right? Because we do want to start to extrude some stuff off we're blocking this character in. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit 2 for edge mode, right? Remember, there are up right here. And I'm going to right click, so that way I can go to loop, cut, and slide. Now remember, if you just left click, it's just going to put it right in the center. But if you hold down left mouse button, you can drag, right? So you can kind of put an edge loop there, and then we'll just kind of right click, loop, cut, slide again, put another one in there. And I'd say put one more in, so right click again, loop, cut, slide. And you see as we left click, drag, you can kind of draw those in. Now at this point, you might stay in edge mode and click on an edge and middle mouse drag it in. Now you'll notice the symmetry can get a little bit picky on that stuff. So like we said before, it might be one of those things where since our we're in the blue and then modifier menu, we'll kind of maybe turn that that merge limit down a lot, right? And you'll see that sometimes it can kind of open things up, but if you move it over a little bit, it'll kind of merge it. Sometimes you are going to get that kind of stuff, right? Which can be a little bit annoying. So you might want to kind of just turn off maybe even just that kind of topology mirror stuff, right? And we might see that that works a little better. So topology mirror can be kind of a little bit funky, a little picky. So you might just leave that off altogether, right? And that's just your move, rotate, and scale tools kind of have those options for that mirror. So you might find that you actually prefer having that off, and it won't pull in or push as much. You just have to keep in mind that, you know, like you said, it's going to pull that stuff apart. So you have to be a little bit more careful with that stuff, right? But you'll notice kind of that even though you have that topology mirror, it's kind of a little bit wonky, right? You really kind of probably rely a lot more on the mirror modifier itself with merge on. And you see we can start to kind of select edges and we can move them around. Middle mouse, right? We'll kind of just do those selection, the view move, right? You can just kind of slowly select edges, middle mouse, just kind of start to give kind of some shape to the kind of chest, kind of pectoral area, right? Now, if you want to start exploring this, remember, if you left click up here, there is a tweak tool. And you see I've already assigned some quick keys. The tweak tool is cool because you can just left click drag, right? So there's a tweak tool. You're going to find that there is no multi-cut or a multi-component, at least that I know of in Blender, like Maya has. So you'll have to kind of do it more from the specific selection type you're in. So we can just kind of do some quick little tweaks. So remember, tweak tool, we saw this a bit in Maya, really just allows you to just click. You know, you can just left click drag instead of select and then select whatever movie tool you're going to do. So that's an option you have, but you don't have to use it, right? So if you just kind of want to switch those around. So there we go. We got kind of a little bit of a body started up there. Now in this case, you know, I've got circle select on, hit 3 for face mode, and I can just left click drag to select those. W for move, middle mouse, just to kind of do that free move. And you know, it's going to be a troll. We can have fun making it a little more stylized. So I'll select this face. Now, 3 is face mode, right? And if you hold down right mouse button on it, or click right mouse button, right, it brings up the face context sensitive menu. And you see there's extrude faces. And we can just left click drag to extrude, and then we just left click kind of exit it. Middle mouse to kind of rotate that a little bit, or move it. E for rotate, remember you can use view rotate. Middle mouse will just view rotate it. Rotates it based on the screen. Remember, you can use the handles though, right? Just like you would in normal Maya. But W is move, E is rotate, just like Maya. And we can right click and extrude faces again. We can kind of extrude this down, move it in a little bit. E for rotate, view rotate, right? Middle mouse button, view rotates. R for scale, middle mouse button will do that uniform scale. So the nice thing is once you start getting used to kind of that manipulator setup, it actually works pretty well. I'm actually quite pleased with how the overall workflow with Blender's manipulators. But they also work very much like Maya's already. We can go back to edge mode if we want and select edges, right? Or even use our tweak tool, right? Just to kind of quickly adjust these a little bit, right? And kind of see those are a little bit fat. So we can always kind of tweak these in to do a little bit of shaping here. And tweak will work with faces, right? So if I hit 3 to go to face mode, I could tweak faces as well, right? So we can kind of tweak these in a little bit more. And you can see we're starting to kind of block in the arm, right? And I can even leave tweak tool on, right click, extrude faces, kind of extrude that down, and we're still in tweak tool, right? And of course I can switch to rotate, middle mouse button for rotate, move, W for move, right? And you said we can start to kind of block in the arms a little bit there. Right, that's going to start to give us this modeling functionality. Now in this case, I'm going to hit 3 to make sure I'm in face mode. And I'm going to click this top face, right? So we kind of start with the cube, made sure to put an edge loop, delete it in half, put a few edge loops in it. And then we extruded kind of an arm off of that face there. And we switch to this top face, because this is where we're going to extrude up our head. So I'll right click to extrude faces, right? Remember that brings these options up. And I can drag this out for the neck. And then what we could do is we could right click, extrude faces again to kind of bring up the actual head. And then we could switch to a different face, because right, we're in 3 for face mode. Then I could right click again, extrude faces, kind of bring that out a little bit. Now, one of the things that you have to be aware of currently is that there is kind of inside faces in here, right? So this is one of those things where, since we've got the blue guy up here, one of the things we can always do is temporarily turn our mirror off, right? So you see how we can just kind of click on the X axis here to just kind of tell it not to mirror. And then what we could do is we could go in here and select these faces, right? Remember, Shift will add, and we could delete those, right? Delete brings us options up, faces. And then we could turn our mirror back on, right? And now you see I can kind of grab those faces, middle mouse, because that does your view move, right? I could select this face, middle mouse, just can move that down a little bit. Select that face. And you see how we can kind of start to get our head block in here, right? Middle mouse to kind of do view move. And if you want 2 for edge mode, I can select this edge, move it in a little bit, grab that edge. Remember, we're just left clicking, right? Just left clicking to kind of move these around. But you see how we can start to kind of get the overall basic kind of head form in here. So you can see we're just kind of focusing on doing the major block in stuff, right? And remember, you can just kind of turn your mirror off temporarily. Right, just right through there, and with these modifiers there, you know, you don't have any other history besides those. Now at this point, what I want to do is I want to kind of block in the legs really quick, and then we'll stop the video. All right. So I'm going to go, so I'm already in edge mode, right? 2. All right. It's these right here though. Right click, I can go to loop cut slide, and what I can do is I can kind of put an edge loop. Oops, didn't want to put it there. Right click, loop cut slide, and I can put an edge loop right in here. Now you have to be careful, right, because of that merge tolerance, so you might just put it in there a little bit, just to kind of make sure it doesn't push in there too far, all right? And then of course we can always go back in and make minor adjustments. And if you need to, you can always turn that merge limit down a little bit, right? So remember, good idea to probably keep up that little blue wrench modifier, so that way if you need to turn that down a little bit. See how it doesn't merge until it gets closer? That is going to have to be something you guys are going to have to be a little bit aware of when you're doing some of this modeling on stuff. Particularly these edges that actually touch the line of symmetry, right? For just regular edges, you're fine. Like I said, this is kind of one of those areas where, quite honestly, Blender could be better, right? Its overall symmetry functionality is not as strong as it could be. But it's good enough, right? It kind of get us there. See, so I'm just kind of switching edges. I'm still in edge mode. I'm just clicking edges to move them around and then to create some form and shape. This edge loop gives us a little more, right? So we can kind of start to bring out some pecs, maybe a little bit of arm there. Remember, I'm just selecting edges, move tools on W, right? And middle mouse button just lets you do free move, all right? Now I'm going to switch back to face mode. I'm going to hit 3 for faces. And I'm going to select this bottom face because this is going to be where the leg. So we wanted this edge loop up the center because, one, we really do need some extra edge loops for the face later on. And we do need some extra edge loops to allow us to do enough good shaping to the kind of main body torso area here. So I wanted those edge loops in there for that. But I also really wanted them in here so that we actually have a proper geometry for the crotch area, right? So there's actually real polygons there that aren't going to be used for the leg. And we select this face right here for the leg. And of course, because that's 3 for face mode, we just left click on a face, right click, and remember it brings up your context sensitive menu, extrude faces. We can extrude that down a little bit for kind of the thigh. Right click, extrude faces kind of for the knee. Right click, extrude faces kind of for the leg. Now, this is a tool that, of course, you could assign a quick key to as well if you want to as you go along, just like you have in Maya, right? But for now, I'd like you to get used to like the context sensitive menu, right? And now I can select faces, and I can move these in, right? If we want, we can hit 2 for edges, and you just left click on them to select, right? Move tool's still on, right? If you just, like Maya, if you leave W on, it just stays on. And if you hold down middle mouse button, right, it allows you to do free move. So this can allow us to do some shaping for kind of this kind of body area, right? I can grab this edge, bring it forward a little bit, that edge, maybe this edge right here. I can select that edge, middle mouse to kind of bring it out here a little more for the leg. And of course we can hit 3 for face mode, right? And I can just select shift, left click, will add, right? And of course you have drag select up here. There's the tweak tool, but you also have your selection tools if you left click on it. And so I could easily just come in here if I wanted to and just switch back and forth between edge and face mode, right? And we could slowly kind of start to tweak some of this stuff forward a little bit to get shape. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that my back actually has a bit of kind of what we call an S-curve, right? Your back is not straight, right? So you see how there's kind of a bit of curvature there, and you can even see kind of my chest, kind of stomach areas coming out a little bit as well. But you'll even see that the legs kind of have a bit of curvature also, right? I'll hit 3 for face mode, bring that face forward. That's because we're not made of straight lines, right? We're made of lots of curves. So this gives us that ability to kind of do those tweaks, right? Remember, up arrow will grow selection, so I could always make my leg a little shorter just by up arrow to grow, down arrow to shrink. I can move the legs forward a little bit more. And you now see we have a basic block in for the troll body. Now, I am eventually going to show you how to put a shoulder pectoral girdle edge loop in, and we'll eventually kind of smooth this up once. But really, this is just about you guys getting used to some of these tools right here and things like extruding, right? So that'll be a great place to start.